At this point, everyone's aware that Final Fantasy XIV is a theme park. If you like Final Fantasy games, you'll find something to like here. In every expansion, right, there's something to like from previous Final Fantasy games, albeit name drops, actual bosses from the previous games, or hell, an expansion entirely themed around the Final Fantasy game. But a theme park is not all what Final Fantasy XIV is. It has a great story on its own, while occasionally borrowing from the previous games to enhance the experience. Maybe in the future it'll borrow from the games which came after it, who knows? But you know the things I listed just now, the 1, 2, 3 thing? The third option is starting to bother me. Final Fantasy IV is the theme for Endwalker, I mean it's obvious from the logo. And some story beats directly parallel FF4 storytelling, which is quite nice. But it goes about it in a way where it takes references and some events from FF4, but it tells its own original story, that 10-year saga they were concluding. See, I don't have a problem with that. The problem lies in the patch quests. See, when we got to the patch quests, they introduced another character and they introduced another shard, which is really great. I mean, ever since we learned about the shards, we wanted to see more of them, right? That's an opportunity to show us more of the shards. They didn't do the obvious thing of taking the shard's number and taking the corresponding Final Fantasy game and just arranging the plot around that. But what they have done is something far worse, in my opinion. Instead of arranging a Final Fantasy XIV plot around a game and around a theme, they transplanted another game into Final Fantasy XIV. What I mean by that is they took the bosses and the important moments from that game and tried to make it work in 14 itself. Now, this is something that, to my knowledge, hasn't been done before in 14. Every boss from previous Final Fantasy games have been references at best. References or ingrained deep in the original lore that Final Fantasy XIV had. For example, Elizabeth being the Warrior of Light was so fitting. You would not go, wait, that's from FF1, that's the main character of FF1, and just, you know, dislike that. You wouldn't dislike that, because it fitted in the lore of 14 itself. How they're going about it now is they're taking a Final Fantasy game and shaping an entire story around it. They're not taking a reference and just putting it into the Final Fantasy XIV story for like a cool reference or a cool moment that just fits the moment. No, we're just taking the entire boss roster and the entire story theme and just pushing it onto Final Fantasy XIV. Now, Endwalker handled it kind of gracefully in my opinion, although my friends do not like it. I do like it because I'm kind of biased towards Final Fantasy IV. It's a great game. Here's the thing though, right? In order to make these bosses fit the narrative, they put a narrative forward that wouldn't be really that much different from Final Fantasy IV. Like the 4 fiends and the head of the group, Golbez, everything just happening and suddenly Zeramus appears. That's not that much different from how Final Fantasy IV went. From what I remember, they structured Endwalker in such a way where it started and ended without the need of patch quests like the previous expansions. So I thought they took the patch quest as a chance to pay homage to Final Fantasy IV, you know, the game that the expansion is themed around. At the time, it was fine. But then in Dawn Trail, as the story progressed, you started to see a pattern. Every single location and every single boss, instead of being its own unique thing in Final Fantasy XIV's world, it's tied to a previous Final Fantasy game. The game Dawn Trail heavily references is Final Fantasy IX. Now, Final Fantasy IX is a great game. I haven't played it, but if you want to watch me play it, twitch.tv/scsin, I'll be playing it live. It feels like I'm going through a story and then suddenly, look, Final Fantasy IX, you know that boss? Look, Final Fantasy IX, you know Alexandria, you know Treno the Dark City? And then there's suddenly an FF8 boss like Doom Train and then has the Final Fantasy IX music over it. Like Final Fantasy XIV referencing old Final Fantasy games isn't anything new or groundbreaking. It has done this several times in its history. You know, there used to be trial side quests that isolated these Final Fantasy references in a different story apart from the main story quest. And as a result of that, the main story quest progressed at its own pace without being forced to fight a boss at the end of every patch. Right now, the trial series no longer exists, and for them to make us fight a boss, things had to progress very quickly. Now, the cracks are showing in the MSQ purely because of that. At what point does a theme park become the theme itself? They had the bright idea to integrate the trial series into the MSQ to make more people play it, but I don't think it's helping the MSQ at all. I'm not against Final Fantasy references in 14, it's what keeps the game afloat. Aside from the original story that the game has, the references are fun. Like as of today, the main story quest is still trying to fit Final Fantasy IX themes into its overall narrative. See, I did not dislike going into Treno, I did not dislike fighting the Doom Train, I did not dislike any of the trials they put out since patch quests of Endwalker. But the loss of the trial series is affecting the MSQ. I just wanted to put this out there because I don't think I'm the only one that noticed this, but I haven't seen much people talking about this. All people talk about, me included, is how bad Dawn Trail is, or how much Moklamat speaks, or how much... For me, I hope the next Final Fantasy game that they theme the next expansion around, they do it properly without pushing the Final Fantasy game too far into the expansion, because they're in dire need of another original story. Let me know in the comments if you like how Final Fantasy XIV has integrated its Trial series into the main overarching narrative, because personally, I don't think it's doing a good job. This is not to bash on the narrative quality of Dawn Trail, it has improved immensely since the ending of the expansion. I just do not think integrating the Trial series into MSQ is the right way to go about things. But yes, if you enjoyed this rant, hit that like button and press subscribe, and I'll see you guys when I'll see you guys. This is Sin, signing off. Thanks for watching.